Hello everybody, my name is Spoons Rattling, and today we are covering the Grotmus Detachment for the Space Marines, which has all to do with Librarians, which I think were criminally underrepresented in the Codex. So I'm glad to see them getting a whole detachment about them. So their detachment rule is the Psychic Disciplines, which have been around for a while in the lore at the very least. So at the start of the battle round, select one of the following Psychic Disciplines. Until the end of the battle round, that Psychic Discipline is active, and its effects apply to all Adeptus Astartes Psykers units from your army. So Biomancy gives you plus 2 inches of movement to every Psyker unit in your army, and remember, this does apply to lead units as they gain the keywords of the unit leading them. Divination Discipline, each time a model in this unit makes an attack, reroll a hit roll of 1, and reroll a wound roll of 1, also super powerful ability to have, and in general quite good for just about anything. The Pyromancy Discipline, each time a ranged attack is made by a model in this unit targets an enemy. Each time a ranged attack made by a model in this unit targets an enemy unit within 12 inches, improve the armor penetration characteristic of that attack by 1. Telekinesis Discipline, each time a ranged attack targets this unit, subtract 1 from the strength characteristic of that attack. And Telepathy Discipline, each time a model in this unit makes an attack, you can ignore any or all modifiers to that attack's weapon skill or ballistic skill modifier, and or any or all modifiers to the hit roll. So let's go through these. Biomancy Discipline, generally useful as just something to get your units around the board much faster. Divination gives you rerolls, hit rolls of 1. Divination is going to be your jack-of-all-trades approach, and will just generally be useful, though it does have some overlap with Oath of Moment, so maybe not your jack-of-all-trades, but generally one that will be quite good. The Pyromancy Discipline is definitely very interesting, especially, again, with something like buffed Intercessors, for example. Getting that many attacks would be crazy, or using newly buffed Infernus Marines as well. The Telekinesis Discipline is useful enough if you're fighting something like Custodes, who often hover around, strength 7 or strength 8. So reducing that so you're not getting wounded on 2s could be very useful. And then Telepathy is also useful, especially if you're fighting something like, what would the word be? What's an army that hands out, like, -1 to hits? Any army that does that kind of shenanigans, Telepathy is your go-to. This is a very flexible rule, and all of these are quite powerful. I quite like all of them and can think of various uses where they would be very, very helpful. Let's move on to the enhancements. Prescience, a classic Space Marine spell. As for a Psyker model, excluding Terminators, once per turn when an enemy unit ends a normal advance or fall back move within 9 inches of the bearer, the bearer's unit can make a normal move of d6 or up to 6 inches instead if the Divination Discipline is active for your army. So at 25 points, I think Prescience is totally fine. It could definitely be useful for something like a Librarian and Phobos armor, just to make your unit extremely hard to get to grips with its whole no-shoot me, moving after shooting or whatever it may be, and then of course if something even does get close to you, you can simply run away. Celerity is 30 points for a Psyker model only. The bearer's unit is eligible to declare a charge in a turn which it advanced, and if the Biomancy Discipline is active for your army, is eligible to declare a charge in a turn which it fell back. So this is very useful, especially for something like a Psyker and Terminator armor, so to give your Terminators much more movement. And while the buff from the Biomancy Discipline isn't the most useful, having Biomancy would just be very useful as something like, again, Terminators are moving at 7 inches, so a lot faster. Or even something like a, well, now that I think about it, no Librarian can join Blade Guard. Obfuscation is 20 points for a Psyker model only. Enemy units cannot use the Fire Overwatch stratagem to shoot at the bearer's unit. And if the Telepathy Discipline is active for your armor, the bearer unit cannot be targeted by ranged attacks unless the attacking model is within 18 inches. I'd say this is also quite useful, again, with Terminators, just to make them really, really hard to remove. But this would just generally be something that could be useful, even just to have as a, just for something that's coming in from Deep Strike that might be fragile. And then we have Fusillade for 15 points. Adeptus Astartes Psyker model only. Ranged weapons equipped by models in the bearer's unit have the anti-monster and anti-vehicle 5+ abilities, and the sustained hits 1 ability if Pyromancy is active. And add 6 inches to the range characteristic of those weapons if the Telekinesis Discipline is active for your army. So this is a crazy good enhancement, in my opinion. For 15 points, obviously the anti-monster, anti-vehicle 5+ are really useful for punching up. But the main thing I see this with is, what are they called? Stern Guard Veterans. because they get full reroll wounds now, this is really, really strong because they have devastating wounds. So say you get in close, or even adding 6 inches to your range technically adds 3 inches to your rapid fire range. So even easier to get into rapid fire range, which is very nice. And then just let loose with all those bolters and stuff, and then just fish for mortal wounds on the Oath of Moment target. And you'll probably get a very solid amount, just given how accurate Stern Guard are and how many attacks they have. This is definitely something, if you're running this detachment, I would make sure I'm running, just because of how strong it is. So in terms of enhancements, I think Prescience, Celerity, and Fusillade are very useful, and Obfuscation does have its place. Just it's a little more niche in my opinion, and you have to be locked into telepathy, which telepathy, I should say. Telepathy isn't a bad discipline, but just having it to get the most powerful part of this is a little unfortunate. Next up, we have the Stratagems, of course. For 1 command point, Sensory Assault is in your command phase. For 1 Adeptus Astartes Psyker unit from your army, select 1 enemy unit that is within 18 inches of and visible to 1 Psyker in your unit until the start of your next turn. The enemy unit is pinned. While the unit is pinned, subtract 2 from that unit's move characteristic, charge rolls, and if the telepathy discipline is active, they must take a battle shock test, subtracting 1 from the result. This is super useful to have on a command point, as you can just whip that out pretty handily to slow something down. Though probably not the most powerful stratagem as a whole, I'd still say it has its place, especially against slow armies that you could make even slower. Something like Death Guard, for example. Armor of Contempt is 1 command point, and do remember this only lasts until the end of the attack, because it says this, but it got changed in the balanced data slate, only lasts for that attack sequence, but it's your standard Armor of Contempt aside from that. That applies to all Armor of Contempt, so the one for the Sisters, the one for the Veterans of the Long War, they all only last for that attack sequence. Fiery Shield is 1 command point. In the fight phase, just after an enemy unit has selected its targets, 1 infantry or Astartes mounted unit from your army that is, again, within 18 inches of 1 or more Adeptus Astartes Psyker model that was selected as the target of one of those attacks. Till the end of the phase, each time an attack targets your unit, subtract 1 from the hit roll. If the Pyromancy discipline is active for your army, weapons that target your unit have the hazardous ability. So this is generally quite useful. If you're fighting something like knobs equipped with power claws, this would of course be very useful. And if you're fighting something that hits quite accurately, like Custodes, who may not mind the -1 to hit, in the potential to give Custodes hazardous, you could very quickly earn, you could kill a couple Custodes off the hazardous test and be very, very useful. Especially if this is a huge unit of something like Terminators that gets multi-charged. This is, I would say, probably, depending on the circumstances, probably better than Armor of Contempt. Just for the opportunity to just erase units from the board. Iron Arm is 1 command point in your fight phase, 1 Adeptus Astartes infantry unit that is within 18 inches of 1 or more Psykers, and that has not been selected to fight this phase. So, until the end of the phase, add 1 to the strength characteristic of melee weapons equipped, or 2 if Biomancy Discipline is active. So this is really good, unsurprisingly, especially for Terminators that come to mind. I think this is going to be a very Terminator-heavy detachment. Just as a case in point, say you have Biomancy and you have Celerity, you'll be moving 2 inches and you'll have 2 extra strength on your Power Fists or Thunder Hammers, or even, honestly, now with the +1 to wound for generic armies, I think Lightning Claws might actually supersede both of them, because you'd have Strength 7 Lightning Claws with +1 to wound and Twin Linked. Wounding the entire game on 4s, rerolling everything is just super good. But regardless, this is very good. +2 strength is really useful. And even for units where it's not quite as critical, but you just need something to die, for example, Assault Intercessors or Reavers with their new AP bonus, this could be very useful just to get them up to Strength 6 to help them clear off some Toughness 3 infantry, or even just to wound Space Marines more effectively. Then we have 1 command point for Assail. This is in your shooting phase for a Psyker unit that is eligible to shoot. Select 1 enemy unit within 18 inches of and visible to 1 or more Psyker models in your unit, excluding units with the lone op, and roll 66, adding 1 to each result. If the Telekinesis discipline is active for your army, each 4+ enemy unit suffers mortal wounds. Command point mortal wound generation is one of the most powerful things you can have, because it's just, you just have it on command. Say your Ballistus Dreadnought, right? Just drop this Imperial Knight down to like 3 wounds, and you have Telepathy active, or Telekinesis rather, just rip this off and you'll probably just straight up blow it up. This is very useful to bypass super tough things like Bane Blades or even Rogel Dorns, because this would get through their defensive mechanics. And overall, very, very powerful. And just useful to have in general. It's good against every target. Of course, there are some, like Custodes, who have a 4+ Feel No Pain against it. But this is even very good against things like, say you're fighting Sisters, and they have an elite unit pulling up on you, just mortal wounds, and then that's a huge chunk of the unit gone. And then, finally, we have Prescient Precision in the command for 1 command point in your shooting phase for a Psyker unit that has not been selected to shoot. Until the end of the phase, each time a model in your unit makes an attack, that attack has the lethal hits abilities and the ignore cover if divination is active. Again, command point lethal hits, very good. This would be effectively, not entirely dissimilar to Fire Discipline, though very different in how it works. But just having lethal hits on command is very useful. Again, if you're running normal Terminators, they all have their combi bolters, or their storm bolters, and, the 2 missile launchers or assault cannons. Giving that many attacks lethal hits is very useful for chipping things to death. And overall, these are very solid stratagems, in my opinion. Assail, Iron Arm, and Fiery Shield in certain places I think are probably the best. And then the rest are slightly more niche, but still very good. And I think very powerful in general. Of course, you will want to be running a lot of Psykers. I would probably start with probably like a Terminator Psyker, and then just a normal Psyker to lead some Stern Guard with Fusillade. And probably you just want to run multiples of most of the Psykers, so you can use these everywhere on the board. Unfortunately, Psykers don't have the double leader rule, so it would be somewhat difficult to get discounted stratagems. I say that, however, if you run this with Rabute Gilliman, he can of course give out free stratagems alongside Double Oath of Moment now. So very solid. I think Rabute would actually be quite competent in this detachment. Yeah, overall, I think this detachment is great. It buffs a underutilized part of the army in a meaningful way, and it has a lot of very useful abilities, in my opinion. Anyways, I've been Spoons Rattling. I hope you enjoyed this. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and tomorrow we're going to do a video on the Chaos Space Marine detachment that I'm very excited for. See ya.